Hello and welcome to the first episode of Inventory Matters. I'm your host, Ms. Sharma. Today we are going to talk about a problem that most businesses struggle with but often overlooks. The problem of managing surplus and non-moving inventory. To help us understand this problem better, I have with me Mr. Yuvraj Datta, the Director of Operations, Business Development and Process Excellence at Xeon Life Sciences Limited. With years of experience in manufacturing and procurement, he knows the challenges that companies face in managing the operations and inventory efficiently. So, thank you for joining us today, sir. Whenever you're comfortable, we can begin this Q&A session.
Thank you, Muskan, and greetings to you. And thank you for giving me this platform to express my experiential views. And I'll be sharing the insights to what you would be asking me. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, sir. So, my first question is that from your years of experience in manufacturing and procurement, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced in that process, and what impact does it have on the cost and overall efficiency of the business?
Yeah. So, from my experience, one of the biggest challenge that has always been there was between demand fluctuations and supply chain reliability and fulfillment.
Yeah.
On one side, customers and markets are always expecting agility and just-in-time responsiveness from the manufacturers. But on the other side, supply chains are often rigid because they are very bound by the supplier lead times, regulatory requirements, and now with addition of regulatory requirements, there are additional obligations that the procurement and the sourcing teams have to go through. So adding to that, rising volatility in raw material prices, compliance obligations, and increasing sustainability focus. I think that's again something which is a key footprint now into the domain of manufacturing supply chain, wherein it's not only about sourcing it from any XYZ source, it's also about having a sustainable source. So procurement becomes much more than just buying nowadays. So it becomes risk management at a very strategic level. So this is considered to be one of a risk paradigm from that strategic standpoint.
What if the procurement team fails to understand the demand? What impact does it have on the cost and the profitability of the business in terms of procuring the raw materials?
Yeah, the effects are enormous, and these are ripple effects. I think
Okay.
if we have to consider sourcing of ingredients, raw materials, or any component for that matter, I think that's the beginning point, and it actually missteps from the procurement side, or if they fail to source it on time, then the whole supply chain gets into a phase of disruption. So, for example,
Yeah.
it is a two sides sword. If there is a miscalculation or misstepping wherein you are not able to have the complete right scheduling to what demand forecasting is done, then there is always an issue that you can miss out on your sales and of course your customer shipment fulfillments. But at the same time, if you have excess inventory lockups, then your working capital is getting lost. While shortages lead to lost sales, as I said, ultimately procurement and manufacturing are not just back-end functions anymore. So they are directly influencing profitability, cash flows, and even brand reputation, because eventually it's like very, very intertwined process and interdependent process. So any miscalculation on either side, either in terms of excesses or deficits, this is going to pose a huge cost threat to any organization.
Okay. Adding up to that explanation that you gave about miscalculation. So, when that miscalculation leads to excess inventory, how does the company manage and what strategies does it develop to dispose it?
In my experience, there has not been any strategy, and this has never been a part and parcel of any structured process so far. So this is, if I may have to set out my thoughts on the priority that is given to this particular task of getting rid of inventories which are falling excess into a company, I think that follows the least priority, because there is no structured process, and there is always a shying away of procurement of not getting into that particular process of reverse logistics, wherein they would be getting back to the vendor and convince the person to get back the inventory which is no longer usable into their side. So which is why, and due to the priorities that people have into their work profiles and functions, I think something taken and then sending back or selling it off is never something which is getting into a structured focus. So to me,
Yeah.
There is no process.
So there is no process. So you are basically trying to say that all that excess inventory is kind of wasted and
It's
not utilized.
Yes, it is kind of a waste for the people,
Okay.
and they actually consider that to be a sunk cost. So considering that to be a sunk cost, so they give themselves a solace. Okay, we cannot do anything about it.
I mean, with your experience, are you comfortable sharing the numbers, the losses industries face due to this?
I think it is always in two digits. Any company, if you get into their audit books or see their inventory management patterns and their stock positions, I think the percent of non-moving or excess inventories would anyway fall into digits percentages.
I mean, that's
That's
massive,
huge.
right? Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think companies can do to kind of solve this problem? Have you ever thought about any solution?
I think forecast accuracy is one
Okay.
where companies are very profusely working around making it less prone to errors in the forecasting.
Yeah.
And secondly, of course, they have to have a structured process in place. If at all they are bound by something wherein they have got something by virtue of not having that kind of a tenacity to hold it for a longer horizon, if at all they
Yeah.
have some bit of excess inventories, then they should be having some bit of a process to be followed to get rid of it in a way that it will
Yeah.
not get into the place of wastages. There has
Okay.
to be a realization, and
Yeah.
there has to be some bit of unlocking of working capital, and there is some
Mm-hmm.
bit of creating a win-win. Maybe something which is not required by me today may be required by
Okay.
Muskan. So that
Yeah.
trade-off must happen between the two parties.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. And I was just researching a little bit about what causes this excess inventory. One of the reasons that you have already mentioned is the forecasting errors. Second was also shelf life. It is so important in industries like food, pharma, and nutraceuticals. So any raw material that is nearing its shelf life, that also goes to waste. Am I correct?
Yes. So freshness of ingredient eventually dovetails into freshness of the product. So shelf life always plays a very pivotal role to hold, wherein when we are manufacturers, then we have to have those obligations to have the freshest of the product, and that must
Yeah.
comply to the minimum shelf life requirements. Yes.
Yeah, and one more was there. It was regarding MOQs. So could you explain what are those and how does it cause excess inventory?
Yeah, so MOQs play a very huge role into forecasting. Actually, forecasting errors are a starting point. If demand is overstated, then
Yeah.
procurement and production eventually has to, they have to naturally follow that suit. They can't go
All right.
beyond, or they cannot do any kind of their forecasting, because there is only one forecasting that everybody has to follow. Then
Yeah.
MOQs are, which we call them as minimum order quantities, add another layer, because suppliers often enforce bulk orders to maintain their own economies of scale, because they would want
Yes.
to sell off something wherein they would be
Yeah.
seeing bigger profitability.
Correct.
So, but this doesn't always match the actual market needs. So, misaligned procurement. So, now I'll call it out as a misaligned procurement, like chasing discounts for large
Yeah.
volumes without considering consumption velocity. Because at the same time, when procurement is not only wearing a lens to very singularly looking at the aspect of the vendor to take
Yeah.
discounts on the huge quantities that they buy, at the same time, they should also be seeing whether this quantum will eventually get consumed, have this kind of a demand that is standing
Yeah.
out at their door, where they should not be putting any kind of a risk to that particular lot or batch or quantum that they're buying today, that eventually becomes surplus or a waste. So it's a chain reaction of small missteps that accumulate into big inefficiencies eventually for a company.
Got it. So recently, I found out this article on LinkedIn about Blue Lotus value trade link, and I see that you reposted that on your page as well. And the idea actually kind of intrigued me because it plans to solve the same problem as you mentioned. It creates value out of waste, the excess inventory that are unused to be used by someone who actually has a need for it. So it's a digital platform that connects sellers with buyers, and it sounds like a great idea. What do you think? How effectively they will be able to solve this problem in future?
So I see Blue Lotus playing a very important role in closing a gap that we have just been able to discuss. So this closure of critical gap in supply chain management, most companies put a lot of effort into procurement, productions, and eventually sales. But very
Yeah.
few have a structured approach. That I've already mentioned that we do not have a structured approach followed by a structured process for recovery
Correct.
of non-moving or surplus inventory. This is where Blue Lotus steps in, turning what is
Yeah.
traditionally seen as a loss into an opportunity. And the digital platform that they have formed, I think that's something like a very novel concept that they're bringing here, wherein they will be keeping something like a complete transparent process, and they are
Yes.
giving that leeway to the company. Because when we say that there is no structured process, so they're giving that structured process to the people. Once
Yeah.
company registers into that platform, they have got that access. That's something where they would not be able to have that kind of a focus to get any value out of what they're considering that to be a waste of today, maybe a very valuable realization of tomorrow. So they just need
Yes.
to log in, they just need to register themselves, and they just need to put that excess inventory that they have there into the portal, and that will automatically be
Yeah.
transmitted into something like a catch of an eye with the people who actually are wanting that. And that also sums up into some bit of a trade-off where some value realization will happen, and that's going
Yes.
to be a happy and a win-win situation for both the organizations.
For
So
both the
let's see
organ.
what Blue Lotus has in their platter, and let them
Yeah.
unveil more statistics and more aspects to the companies, so that there should be more excitement towards it, that more and more customers should get joined with this particular crusade. I call that to be a crusade because that's something which is very, very novel, and I'm very excited about it. So I would
Yeah.
want that to go and touch heights.
Also, sustainability is such a buzzword right now, and they are creating that by developing a circular economy. So, sounds like a wonderful plan, but what do you think would be the challenges faced by them? Any suggestions that you would like to give to them regarding this? Because I'm planning to host my next episode with the founder of Blue Lotus Value Trade Link. And before that, I thought it would be nice to have a deeper understanding of what are the challenges in such industries. And you have perfectly answered all my questions. And I'm quite ready to host my next episode. Just wanted to also, gain your insights on what could they improve and what challenges they would face and how they can overcome them in future.
Blue Lotus, to an extent of understanding that I have, I
Yeah.
think there is nothing like a challenge as of now, because they have still not been able to get into that operating place.
Yeah.
But in the strategic intent that they have created for their organization, and because I'm also privy of some bit of their next steps, which they are eventually going to be shaping up soon, and they will be putting it very, very transparently upfront to their clients and customers. So challenge when they are going to be getting into the grind of operability of this organization is the touch points. So they have to have all the valid touch points. They have to
Yeah.
have complete repository of what all sources they would be hinging on. How are they
Yeah.
going to be encashing on to the things where the floaters, the ideas, the inventory patterns or inventory quantums are going to be getting and sitting into the repository, and how they are going to be making the best realization out of it, and how
Yeah.
they are going to be making it a sustainable model. And at the same time, as you rightly said, because this is not only something like a trade-off or a transaction happening on the inventory front, this is also going to be something where they are repositioning and repurposing that inventory to not hold that bad footprint on the planet Earth. So this is how sustainability also comes into the play, that how they
Yeah.
are making this sourcing so effective. And more than a challenge, I think setting right their direction into this will also give an extra edge and confidence to the procurement chaps, that okay, today we might be exploited by the vendor to
Yeah.
adhere to the MOQs, but
MOQs.
yes, somebody sitting there, in case we are not going to be consuming this bit of a quantum in toto, then Blue
Yeah.
Lotus is certainly there on the doorstep, that they would definitely be getting us that trade-off. If we are not
Yes.
able to use it, somebody else will use it.
Yeah.
That's how this positioning is there, and of course, more than a challenge that Blue Lotus themselves face, I think they are going to be working towards scrapping those challenge,
Yeah.
So that's how I see it.
Yeah, this actually has been a very insightful conversation. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I would like to have more such conversations with you in the future. Any suggestions or feedback that you have regarding this
So I'm
conversation?
I'm very elated and working with youngsters like you, and of course all the three directors of Blue Lotus are very young. I interacted with them the other day. I think the kind of confidence that you guys have built in right from the foundational principles that you have raised this company on is something like very unique. In my experience, I have been able to throttle lot of inventory management projects and aspects that I personally drove, but this kind of sensibility and this kind of extra positioning had never been there. And with this
Yeah.
kind of a cushion now getting in place, I'm sure companies are definitely going to be largely benefited out of it. So my best wishes upon you, and especially to you, Muskan, for
Thank you so
bringing up
much.
this topic, which is very critical these days, and
Yeah, thank you.
getting it to an extent of getting and bringing more benefits for the companies. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. God bless you.